Hi lovely people, welcome to Zop Lady, welcome to my channel once again. And today, guess what, who I have in my guest seat? I thought he was Chinese, but he said no, he's not a Chinese. So I'll give him the opportunity to tell us a bit about himself before we dive into today's topic. Yes, so
finally here.
finally we made it. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm David. It's an English name that was chosen when I came to South Africa in 92.
92.
So this year marks the 30th year that I've been in this country. I came when I was 14, I'm now 44.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you are Chinese.
But Taiwanese.
But you're still a South African.
South African, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm Taiwanese-South African.
Okay.
Majority of the people will refer me to as the Taiwanese-South African.
Okay,
yes.
so do you get to keep your passports?
Yes.
From
Yes.
Because I know if you're Chinese, if you attain another, how do you call it? Another citizenship,
Yes.
you are denied
you
of
have
the
to,
other one.
Yes, you have to keep
But
up your original.
Okay.
Yes. So in my case, the Taiwanese government actually recognizes dual citizenship.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
If,
Really?
If it was granted
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah.
But because I was here when I was very young,
Yeah,
you know, I obtained my citizenship that way. So you can play around with the passports.
Exactly. That's when it best suits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you enter Taiwan, you use the Taiwanese passport.
Yeah.
If you come back to South Africa, use the South African passport.
Okay.
So I'm the citizen of the globe.
That's really
Yes,
nice.
yes.
Okay, so as I said, we want to know more about the Taiwanese South African.
Yes.
Who are you? How did you grow up? How was your childhood like?
So
What have you been doing?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so I came in 92. There was an influx of immigrants from Taiwan back in the days because of the diplomatic tie between Taiwan and South Africa.
Okay.
So there was a lot of incentives for immigrants to come into South Africa.
Yeah.
So I belong to that batch between the 80s and the 90s.
90s. Okay,
Right.
so you came in 92.
Yeah, I came in 92. And a lot of my cousins who came a few years before me, they belong to the 85 to 90 group.
Okay.
So I'm the 90 to 95 group.
Okay.
Anyway, so long story short,
Yeah.
because of the political tie,
Yeah. Okay.
there were, I think, roughly estimated about 30,000 Taiwanese people at one stage, which is quite a bit considering a lot of the people came through and it basically invested in the rural area for textile factories, other light industrial manufacturing, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But up until I think about 94, 96,
Yeah.
that's when South African government started to favor the Chinese
Okay.
relationship.
Okay.
So that's when a lot of the Taiwanese people then moved back to Taiwan or moved to other countries.
Oh, I see.
So
Wow.
I think we are about just over 12,000 people strong
Wow.
in South
Yeah.
Africa.
Wow.
So not a lot of us left.
Yeah.
But to your earlier question,
Yeah.
I'm from Taiwan originally.
Yeah.
And the cultural aspects of Chinese and the Taiwanese people are quite similar. The difference is the political view. Obviously, with the different parties from the Civil War split into half.
Yeah.
So we were the Democrats,
Yeah. Okay.
and obviously the Chinese people are more the Communist Party followers.
Yeah.
So I came here when I was 14.
Wow.
I stayed with my uncle and his family.
Okay.
I studied in Lowveld High School in Nelspruit. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
So it's now called Mbombela,
Yeah.
from the eastern part of South Africa.
Okay. Wow.
And I matriculated in 96.
96. Okay.
Yeah. Giving away my age.
I mean, you already said it, sir.
So, and then I went to Wits University. I
Yeah.
studied architecture.
Okay.
And then I became an architect in early 2000s, and I've been practicing ever since in South Africa.
Wow. So you're a certified architect.
Professionally registered architect.
Wow, that's good. Thumbs up for you. So now I
Yes.
also want to find out from you, just based on the answer you gave me.
Yes.
You've been here since 1992,
Yes.
right? How many languages do you speak, the local languages in South Africa?
Well, that's actually a bit embarrassing to say this. I learned Swazi when I was in Nelspruit.
Okay.
And I wasn't fluent, but I knew enough
Okay.
to understand the conversation.
Okay.
And obviously I learned the Afrikaans,
Yeah.
which was the second language that's required.
Ah, so you speak Afrikaans.
Not so much now. That's the problem, because I don't think I've spoken either languages for the last 20 years almost.
Wow.
So like I understand,
Yeah.
and sometimes I need to just stop and pause and and see what the actual structure of the sentence is for me to understand.
Okay.
So, and my mother tongue, a lot of people say, "Oh, you Chinese, you speak Chinese." No, and it's no such thing as Chinese, the language.
Yeah.
So I speak the dialect, which is Mandarin, which is considered the national language.
Okay.
And I speak Hakka, which is my mother tongue.
Okay.
That's not the new all black Hakka. It's a different Hakka.
Okay.
It's like they call them like the gypsies of the Chinese culture.
Wow.
And I can speak Taiwanese, which is the dialect of the Fukienese, which is from the southeastern part of China. And I can speak Cantonese.
Oh,
But
that's a lot.
Cantonese is the main language that people speak in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And also the province of Canton in China.
Yeah.
So these are the major languages that I can communicate.
Okay. Yeah. So okay, just pardon me about my ignorance, because for me growing up, of course now with technology I should know more, but sometimes you have other things in your mind,
of
and then
course.
so I want to find out what's the difference between a Chinese, a Taiwanese, a Japanese, a Korean, because for us as Africans we
all
think
look the same.
you all look the same. Can you just educate us a little bit before we now go back how life is in South Africa since the time you were there, since the time you came, and then now?
Absolutely. So Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Taiwanese. We are all basically from the same melting pot.
Okay.
That is from the mainland China originally.
Originally.
But then the Japanese people broke away about 3,000-4,000 years ago. So they have developed their own culture, even though we look very similar.
Exactly.
The Koreans were the same story. I think about 100 years ago, they also broke away. So now imagine China as an African continent. You have got various parts. And you know the borders are divided by politics.
Yeah.
So you can be on the border, but you're actually the same people. Right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the same story with a lot of the Asians, or shall we say the Chinese-looking Asians. That's the difference.
Okay.
Because Asians also includes the
Indians.
And then the Malay.
Yeah.
And you obviously have all the what we call the Aborigines, the island people, which look very similar throughout that whole equator belt globally. So we have various kind of Asians. We've just been grouped together by politics as called Asians. So I'm the Chinese Asian.
Okay.
Right? So we're the Mandarin Asian. And then you have the Japanese who don't really speak the language, but their language actually was derived from the Chinese written language. So was the Korean.
Okay.
And then I think about 5-6 decades ago, Korean also invented their own writing to differentiate from the Chinese culture.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty much the difference. Not that it makes any difference for
But
people.
just a political
Exactly.
lineage.
So if you just look at us, if we dress the same way, you will never be able to
Exactly.
tell. Similarly to say the Africans.
Exactly.
I would not know if you don't wear your traditional, costumes or attires. Because of the traits, the characteristics are exactly the same.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true because for me as a Ghanaian, most of the time in any country that I find myself, the people think I am from there because I have the kind of similar features that other like the East Africans, also like the southern part. So in my daily transactions here, they speak their dialect to me, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I don't really understand. And then they go like, okay, my accent gives me away. So now I also want to dive in a little bit, since he said he speak a bit of the African language here. Let me test this African, just to say I want to say, how are you in Afrikaans? How would you say that?
Well, you will say, "Goedhanded."
Yeah.
So that's basically good day.
Okay.
Yes.
So now he spoke. So those of my subscribers or anyone who chants on this video who understand Afrikaans, please drop me a comment to see whether what he said is right, because I don't understand it. So if he's deceiving me, please put it in the comments.
I have to say, I might have said it with a very strong Asian accent. I'm not so sure, but people seem to understand. So
okay. So speaking with this Asian accent, you've been here since 1992.
That's right.
And I am surprised you are able to hold on onto your language and your culture. What really motivated you to hold on to your culture and then your language, where you've not even forgotten any? And looking at the list of languages you did mention that you speak, they are still intact. What was the motivation?
I think there's a reason why they call the mother tongue, because you grew up with it, you were born with it. So you're most comfortable expressing yourself with that specific language. One thing which I have done is when I'm with my own community, we try to speak only our language.
Okay.
Because you speak English on a daily basis in
Yeah.
South Africa.
Okay.
And I think there are certain things, certain messages and certain jokes, for example, you just can't do it with a different language. You lose it in translation, like they say. It's a cliche, but it is true.
Yeah.
So there are certain phrases, certain words that you can interchange, but when you talk about certain things, the content as a whole, you try to make it as interesting as possible, right?
Okay.
So you will do it in your own language.
Okay.
Or maybe you want to pass the message on in a specific way, you use your own language.
Yeah.
So for me, that authenticity of the language is really, it's what grabs me. So, and on top of that, I have to speak to my family.
Yeah.
So we will speak in our dialect and everything.
Wow.
So I try to hold on to the language for as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
However, I'm a very rusty when it comes to the writing
Right.
now.
Okay.
Because I don't get to write at
Right,
all.
exactly.
And especially nowadays with information technology, you just don't get to write.
Yeah.
So that is the aspect which is a little bit lacking at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah. But I appreciate my culture.
Yeah.
And as you know, everybody is trading with the East now.
Yeah.
So it is an advantage which I have.
Yeah.
So it's a bit, it will be nonsensical if
Yeah.
I just give it away like that.
Yeah, wow, that is really. You know what I take from here, because most Africans, and I always want to narrow it down to Ghana, when we find ourselves in foreign country, we try to shy away from our language, and this is what I see from the Chinese, that they don't. They keep not the Asians. Let me just say the Asians. They keep to their language. Can we learn from that good example? Anyway, so now let's go back to the original
Question.
Question.
Yes, we keep diverting. Yes.
Yeah. How is life as a foreigner in South Africa for you? Your experiences?
Well, I think based on the time that I've spent here, remember now I came when I was a young teenager.
Exactly.
And then I grew up, you know, in the area where it was very white, very Afrikaans.
Yeah.
Very beer for those of you who
Yeah.
understand the culture back in the days. When I came in 92, right, so it was still the end of apartheid.
Okay.
So in the more outlining area, they still practice a lot of the restrictions,
Yes, okay.
right? So I understood about the different entrance for the white people and everyone else.
Were you part of the everyone else?
I was part of it, even though the Taiwanese at the time were regarded the privileged color.
Okay.
So if you look at the forms that we have to fill in most of the time, you have got the whites, the blacks, the Indians, and then the other.
Wow. You had to fill a form that contains all this.
Exactly. So now remember, these four, there were only four back in the days when I first arrived. There was no Asian, and basically the coloreds were considered
A mixed race.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we fell under the section of the others.
Others.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were the gray area. Let's put it this way. So having grown up in the area like that, in the environment like that, it makes you see races in a very specific way. But because I'm from overseas and I'm from Taiwan, where there were only people that looked like us, that spoke like us, I didn't really understand the oppression part of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand, and I didn't want to be part of that. So I grew up actually being very mixed, you know. And also, I was the first year when they introduced black students, or color students as they call it, back in 91, 92. That's when they start introducing colored learners into schools. So I went through the whole thing, and I was basically the guinea pig for all the different policies. I was in that era. So growing up, it's been, I wouldn't say extremely tough. I mean, you obviously get stared at a lot, especially because it doesn't matter how many generations, Asians will always look Asian.
Yeah.
And for an Asian to be on the African continent, you can be 5 generations down the line, people will still think that you're a foreign Asian.
Exactly.
You can be even speaking their own language, you know, any African language, they will still think that you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
So as a foreigner in this country, I'm very used to being stared at.
Okay.
Especially, you know, when I'm out and about with my family.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just got to prove yourself. You know, I think at the end of the day, if you have what it takes, you can prove yourself one way or the other. It might just take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the privileges of looking like a local person. I think people take that for granted, especially if you're South African and local. You know, people always talk about the white privilege, but in South Africa, you also get the black privilege.
Yeah.
It's just people don't really talk about it in the same manner as the white privileges.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, again, you know, I mentioned earlier that I'm an architect, registered architect. It took a while for people to believe that this Asian architect can actually do the same job as a local white architect or African architect or whatever.
Wow.
So it's an uphill battle, but I think that the more you understand the cultures, the more you understand the differences, right? The more you not necessarily negate it, but you can navigate it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay. So in terms of navigation, now tell me how were you able, maybe take us from step to step, how you were able to navigate to be accepted as an Asian architect.
Yes.
For them to believe in your work. What did you do? Your networking.
Yes.
How did you do it?
I think first of all, you got to be honest to yourself, right? So you have to say, right, I have got the following problems. I'm Asian. That I cannot change.
Through no fault of yours.
Exactly. I cannot speak all the local linguals.
Yeah.
But if you understand enough of the culture and you stop paying respect toward the culture, and I'm not just talking about the African culture, but also the Afrikaans culture, the Indian culture, there's a whole variety, the Portuguese culture, you know, not even, I mean, 11 official languages, they didn't even include a lot of others which was being spoken. But once you respect that and you understand that, you practice more sensitivity towards it, people seem to appreciate that more. Yeah. And instead of resistance, they will provide assistance. Yeah. So I think that is the way I overcame my shortcomings, if you can call it that. A lot of the times, if you go to a foreign country, your accent and the way you speak is the first giveaway, right? So in order to blend in, you got to speak the local language one way or the other. So I think that is the second part about it, is that you got to be able to speak the language that people can understand, and then that you can express freely. And lastly, you just have to be really good at what you do, I suppose.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. I always joked with my wife, and we were a little bit concerned for our kids. Yeah. You know, in 10 years' time, they're going to be writing whatever exams in high school, and the pass rate is 30 or 35% now. That is very scary.
Are you joking me? 35%?
When I came to South Africa, I learned that the pass rate was only 40%. And already I was shocked, because back home in Taiwan, it was 60%. I mean, you got to know more than half of what you've been taught to pass, right? That's what passing is. So now, already when I came, I mean, not only the pass rate was low, the percentage was low, they even have different grading for the same subject. You have a lower grade, standard grade, and a higher grade. Then I thought to myself, gee, I wouldn't like to be treated by a doctor who only knew 35%
exactly.
my
who
body.
Who want to do that? No one.
That is a very scary thought.
Yeah.
Or engineers who design skyscrapers, but you only pass with 36%.
No, and then the foundation is weak before you realize.
It's actually quite a scary thought. Yeah. But it's something that we have to as parents now.
Yeah.
You got to think about
it. How? So, wow. Yeah. So in all his explanation, one of the catchphrases that got to me, I mean, how he was able to meander his way through to be accepted. He said you have to be honest to yourself, true to yourself as well, and through your surrounding. And then he did also say that catchphrase, when you are facing resistance, if you put out this behavior, the honesty and truth to yourself and to your community, you will get to the grade of acceptance. And that is really something we should learn from him. And we are gradually coming to the end of our interview. But before then, I just want him to tell us something, or to advise anyone who happens to be a foreigner, through no fault of theirs, they find themselves somewhere in a foreign country. What are some of the best practices to put up to be accepted in that new community you find yourself?
I would say the number one is to speak freely without prejudice. Yes, we all have these preconceived ideas about what certain people will do under certain conditions or circumstances. But once you wipe that away, everybody is the same. Whether you speak the language or not, everybody is the same. We're all human beings. We want to be loved. We want to be in a group. I think a lot of the times the prejudice and the preconceived ideas or preconceptions are the killer of any relationship between one human to another.
Yeah.
So as a foreigner in the country, if you always think that you're the foreigner, you will always be the foreigner.
Yeah.
You know, go to the local pub, have a sisanyama.
Yeah.
You know?
What is sisanyama?
That's the African barbecue. Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's like an African barbecue.
Okay.
They do it on the big scuttle braai. Everybody put their meat on. You have a beer around it, and then you take your meat when it's done. You all sit. You're sharing the table. Yeah. So it's actually a word that was derived from the actual action of the grilling of the meat on the grill. Yeah. So it goes shh. That's what was explained to me. I might be wrong, but that's called it the shisanyama. Yeah. But what I mean is you not only do you have to blend in, because blend in means you just want to be invisible. Yeah. I think you have to understand others' culture so that you can liberate your own. Yeah. You see, if I want to speak to someone about certain things, I need to understand theirs before I can impose mine onto them. So as a foreigner, do I really see myself as a foreigner now? Not so much. Not so much. I see myself more as a South African or Taiwanese-South African. Yeah. So I embrace both cultures. But what's really diverse about the two cultures is within the two cultures, more major cultures, there are so many subcultures. And it's the subcultures that will define how local you really are. Yeah. You know, you can't just assimilate without the understanding, you know. And that's where a lot of the misunderstandings will cause because of that. Yeah. You just assume this person is a Sotho. He's going to be doing a certain way. He's a white Afrikaans male. He's going to behave in a certain way. But that's not true. Yeah. That's not true. Yeah. Be open, be honest, go out there, enjoy life, enjoy people, give people the opportunity.
Positive energy.
That's it. Yeah. That's all that is. Yeah. And just gotta be open-minded about things and be happy. Yeah. Oh,
I really enjoyed this interview, and then for sure I'm going to have another session with him. This is not going to be from time to time. You will see him on my channel. And as always, maybe you want to say something to my subscribers to subscribe, or people who have not subscribed to the channel. Anything to subscribe to Zop Lady?
Yes. Well, you gotta subscribe. Press that button. It's only one click. Yeah. But what's more importantly is, people, you must understand, creating content is not easy. So support. That's the only way to keep this channel going.
Oh, thank you so much, David, for honoring this invitation. And for sure, we're going to see him again. As always, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about who? Zop Lady. Thank you. Bye-bye.